This video is sponsored by Nebula. Support me directly with getting access to dozens of original series, early releases and more by following the link in the description. This is Bengal. Home of the Bengali people. One half, Eastern Bengal, makes up the country of Bangladesh, literally land of the Bengali. The other half makes up the state of West Bengal and parts of Tripura and Assam in India. Divided by border since 1947, Bengalis still share a common history, food, culture, and language that they are immensely proud of and have died to protect. There are roughly 300 million Bengalis worldwide, making them the world's third largest ethno-linguistic group. About 283 million of them live here in Bengal, a small area of just 239,000 square kilometers. Just one half of Bengal, Bangladesh, is the 11th most densely populated country on earth, and every country above it is a microstate. There are more Bengalis in this spot than there are people in all of Russia, Brazil or Mexico. Bengal is a thriving hub of people and culture with a history stretching out over millennia and across oceans, filled with daring conquests, magnificent architecture and delicious food, in what was once the richest country in the world. So join me as we figure out, who are the Bengalis? Why is Bengal separated, and what exactly is a duckupine? Well, let's find out. Geography. Bengal is diverse, from the awe-inspiring views of the Himalayas and Darjeeling's tea plantations in the north to the lush, rain-soaked region of Sylhet in the northeast. Seriously, this place gets over 4,200 millimeters of rain a year. Famously rainy Seattle, London and Copenhagen get about 1,000 millimeters a year. Central Bengal houses the thriving capital of Bangladesh, Dhaka, one of the most densely populated cities on earth, the beating heart of one of the world's most rapidly developing economies. This megacity is home to 22 million inhabitants. Old Dhaka, due to its canals, gardens and general opulence, was once called the Venice of the East. Venturing southwest, we encounter colourful Kolkata, previously known as Calcutta. This is the vibrant capital of the Indian state of West Bengal and home to about 14 million people. It's also the Indian city with the most Nobel Prize winners. Further south is the Sundarbans, a biodiversity hotspot and the world's largest mangrove forest. This is a lush mosaic of rivers, trees and swamps, and one of the last refuges of the Bengal tiger, who, by the way, eat about 20 people a year. In the past, fishermen here wore masks on the back of their heads to scare off tigers, but apparently the tigers have figured out that trick. Southeast Bengal is home to Chattogram, one of Asia's busiest ports, and Cox's Bazar, the world's longest beach. The rugged Chattogram Hills tract is culturally unique. You see, while Bangladesh is about 98% Bengali, here in the hills there are many non-Bengali indigenous peoples and languages, and it's one of the last strongholds of Buddhism in South Asia. Bengal has one of the world's largest network of rivers. From space you can see the Ganges, Padma, Brahmaputra and Meghna rivers winding down from the Himalayas, building up speed before surging out into the Ganges Delta, the largest delta on earth, bringing fertile silt and soil with the waters every year. Each year from June to October, the monsoon brings immense amounts of rain. Unending rain for weeks at a time turns the ground to slush. But Bengalis know how to live with water. Most of the country is within 10 meters of sea level, and throughout history communities have moved as the deltas and rivers have moved. But every few years a disaster strikes in the form of cyclones or flash floods. In 1970, the deadliest cyclone in human history devastated Bangladesh, killing about 300,000 people. But these grey skies and rushing rivers have given Bengal the world's most fertile soils and have fed millions and stood as witnesses to the rise and fall of civilizations. Outside of the places already mentioned, some fascinating places in Bengal are the mosque city of Bagarhat, the temples of Bishnupur, Khatra Masjid, Lal Bag Fort, which is right in the middle of Dhaka, the Victoria Memorial, the largest memorial to any monarch on earth, the Pink Palace, Pananagar Ghost City, the Star Mosque, the Marble Palace, and Curzon Hall, where language protests eventually resulted in the creation of the state of Bangladesh, or the Shahid Minar, a monument built for the Bengali language martyrs. Language. The language we call Bengali in English is actually called Bangla by its speakers. Actually, it's kind of closer to Bangla than Bangla, which is why the word bungalow, which literally means Bengali style house, is pronounced that way rather than Bangalow. Bengali is spoken by about 300 million people worldwide and is the national language of Bangladesh and the second most spoken language in India. It's the 7th most spoken language on the whole planet. Bengali belongs to the Indo-European language family, which means it shares a common origin with languages like English, Sanskrit, Greek, Latin, Persian, and Irish. Bengali is about 1,300 years old, originating around the 10th century, evolving from Sanskrit, the sacred language of the Vedas, and the holy language of Hinduism. And here's how Bengali sounds.
আর হ্যাঁ, আপনি বললেন না যে স্বামী বিবেকানন্দের আইডিয়া ছিল? ওখানে স্বামী বিবেকানন্দের আইডিয়া ছিল না, হচ্ছে হেগেলের absolute idea.
Bengali, interestingly, has no gender pronouns. The informal e or formal ini can mean he or she. Bengali is written in its own script called Bengali Assamese. It's written from left to right, and unlike English, which floats above an imaginary baseline, Bengali words hang down from a line called a matra. Bengalis are deeply in love with their sweet language, and many have died for it. The 21st of February is International Mother Language Day, a holiday dedicated to the martyrs that have died for Bengali. The nation of Bangladesh was born out of a war started to preserve the Bengali language, an event we'll cover later in the video. Tumi ke monacho is how you ask someone how they're doing in Bengali, and donobad is how you say thank you. My favourite Bengali phrase though is Hans Jaru, which literally means duckupine, as in a creature with the face of a duck and the body of a porcupine. And it means like a very confusing state of affairs. History. The first evidence of permanent settlements in Bengal emerged here 4,000 years ago at Pandu Rajar. These Bronze Age rice farmers lived in well-planned towns, worshipped the mother goddess, and wore comfy cotton clothing. Around 500 BCE, they began developing iron tools to transform the dense forests and swamps into farmland, leading to the growth of large cities like Pandrunagar, Chandrakatugar, and Wari Bateshwar. Wari Bateshwar was a wealthy port city with fortifications, canals, paved streets, and a cotton textile and glass manufacturing industry, with trade connections as far as Southeast Asia, China, and the Mediterranean. Coins discovered at Wari Bateshwar even have little boats on them, which is just adorable. Terracotta art gives us a glimpse into what life was like at this time. Here are some rice farmers, here's a family with a cute dog, there's me after I've eaten too much bread, and here's a goddess with weapons in her hair, which is honestly a look that I think we should bring back. These early Bengalis spoke languages from the Dravidian, Tibeto-Burman, and Austroasiatic language families. Around the 5th century BCE, the Vedic Aryan peoples migrated into Bengal from the west. They brought with them horses and wheat, but they brought something even sexier than gluten. They brought the Sanskrit language, the holy language of Hinduism. Through these people, Hinduism, Buddhism, and Jainism entered Bengal. The Aryans and the Bengalis didn't exactly get along at first, and there was a little bit of murdering. The Mahabharata, an early Hindu epic, describes Aryan raids taking away Bengal's wealth and calls the people there millennias or barbarians. The Mahabharata also tells us that a Bengali, the king of the Vanga kingdom, rode a giant elephant which he used to just yeet soldiers around. Hinduism and especially Buddhism spread rapidly as the Aryans settled down and became rice farmers alongside the Bengalis. The Bengali language would eventually evolve from Sanskrit, but those ancient non-Indo-European languages are still spoken in the hills. Ancient Bengal was rich. The port city of Tamaulipas traded as far away as Crete, Egypt, Southeast Asia, and China, and it's mentioned in Greek and Roman sources, and a Chinese monk staying here in 409 CE counted over 20 Buddhist monasteries in the city. They traded gems, spices, and fine textiles called muslins. We have records of ancient Romans complaining that these textiles were so fine that the people wearing them might as well be wearing nothing at all. People called these muslins flowing water because they were so delicately made. Bengali traders could be found all over the Indian Ocean and probably introduced Buddhism to Sri Lanka, where it's still the primary religion. Alexander of Macedon invaded India in 327 BCE for some reason. But Even Alexander, although he had subdued all of Asia, refrained from making war upon the Gandharidae, alone of all peoples. Upon learning that the Gandharidae had 4,000 elephants equipped for war, he gave up his campaign against them. For Alexander knew the Bengali elephants did yeet about soldiers and feareth the yeeting he did. Alexander failed to conquer the Bengalis, but Bengal would eventually be integrated into the first great Indian empires ruled from Pataliputra, like the Maurya and the Gupta empires. The Maurya and Gupta empires eventually decayed, and by the 8th century the Bengalis were divided and they were having a bit of a rough go of it. The last few centuries were full of foreign invasions, pillaging, this guy got his arm chopped off. It was madness. They called it Machanai, or fish justice, which clearly involves little fish judges and little fish lawyers screaming things like "You're out of order, councillor," and "Your Honour, the defence is clearly floundering. God knows this case smells fishy and we can't let them off the hook," and other hilarious fish-related puns. No? It's a metaphor for a deeply unjust, violent and cruel world where big fish consume the little fish? That's not nearly as fun though. Sick of being little fishes, the Bengalis decided that having a strong, centralised government would defend them, so they had an election. Here's the inscription describing the event. This word Prakriti means the people in Sanskrit. So the people chose a man of humble origins, the warrior Gopala. Him and his elephants pacified the country, and his dynasty, the Palas, built one of India's most powerful empires. In 851 CE, an Arab visitor called Suleiman said the Palas had over 50,000 war elephants in their army. An army so large it had to employ 15,000 clothes washers, which is a good idea since battles are pretty messy. The Palas built a strong, stable state with hospitals, police, food relief for the poor, and they were governed by 10 laws, one of which made it illegal to talk nonsense. The Palas were devout Buddhists and oversaw a Buddhist golden age. Bengal was the last stronghold of Buddhism in India, a land where that religion was dying. They used their vast wealth to fund Buddhist learning centres like Nalanda University in Bihar. This was built centuries before the Palas took over, but Nalanda really peaked under the Palas patronage. Nalanda was one of the first universities in history. Oxford in the UK is one of the world's oldest universities, and Nalanda University is 500 years older than that. This massive centre of learning educated thousands of Buddhist monks, and one section of its vast library was 9 stories tall, housing hundreds of thousands of books. Unhappy with simply funding existing learning centres, the Palas built an entire network of universities like Vikramshila, Odantanpuri, Jagadala, and the jewel of them all, Somapura. The beautiful brickwork, the geometry, the carving, the hundreds of rooms for students surrounding the monasteries, the central tower soaring out from the flat Bengal plain, this little happy goat marvelling at the architecture. And these are just the ruins and foundations that we can see today. We can only imagine what it looked like when they were in their prime. Tens of thousands of students and professors came from India, Tibet, China, Java, Cambodia and Myanmar to study logic, philosophy, science, astronomy and Buddhism here. The Bengali monk Atasa trained at Vikramshila, then went to Tibet and revived Buddhism there, where it's still the major religion today. Hindus were still part of Pala society and held important government positions, and Islam arrived through trade in the 800s and began to slowly gain followers. After 450 years of rule, the Pala kingdom eventually crumbled in the face of numerous invasions in the 12th century. From the chaos, the Senas, chieftains from southern India, took over Bengal. The Senas were Orthodox Hindus, and under their rule, Buddhism went into a steep decline. The Senas oversaw a great age of Hindu literature and black stone art, but they were interrupted when a new power arrived from the west. Around the 11th century, recently Islamized Turkic, Afghan and Iranic peoples started raiding northern India. They conquered the Indian kingdoms and set up the Delhi Sultanate in the first few years of the 1200s, which quickly incorporated large swaths of India. Enter Muhammad Bakhtir, a general of the Delhi Sultanate. With his army he swept across Bihar, plundered its rich monasteries, massacred the monks there and left them as silent, smouldering ruins. His historical infamy was sealed as the flames of thousands of ancient texts danced in his eyes. The surviving monks grabbed what they could and fled to Tibet and Nepal. Bakhtir's gaze then turned towards Bengal. On hearing of his arrival in Bengal in 1204, the 80-year-old Sena king Lakshma Sen fled east, Bengal fell without much of a fight. Many even joined Bakhtiar, especially Buddhists unhappy with Sena rule. Bakhtiar created a Muslim kingdom in Bengal, built a Buddhist temple to reward his followers, and then promptly went off to get murdered while trying to invade Tibet. His brief reign was just a blip, injected Turkic, Afghan and Iranian influences, and brought a Muslim ruling class and Arabic and Farsi as the new state languages. Soon the Delhi Sultanate swallowed Bengal and its riches flowed to Delhi. In 1342 CE, Shamsuddin Ilyas Shah, a Delhi Sultanate official, rebelled, conquered Gaur, told the Delhi Sultanate they were losers, and declared independence, creating the independent Bengal Sultanate. The Ilyas Shah dynasty ruled Bengal for 150 years and created the first unified Bengali identity. Before, Sanskrit, Arabic and Farsi were the state languages, but now Bengali was standardized and given state support, which funded Hindus and Muslims that wrote in Bengali. By the 15th century, a Chinese visitor noted the universal language in use was Bengali, and the sultans, although Muslim, took part in pre-Islamic Bengali traditions such as ceremonial bathing in the Ganges and called themselves Rajas. They had become Bengali kings. This area stopped being called different regional names like Vanga, Gaur and Samata, and now the whole area was called Bangla. The Bengal Sultanate was a huge exporter. Their trade routes went from Spain to East Africa to China. It was called the richest country to trade with and exported goods like silk, muslin, steel and gunpowder. From the 7th to the 16th century, Gaur was the capital of Bengal. It was founded by the Bengali king Shashanka in the 7th century CE, whose reign is actually the beginning of the Bengali calendar. Current year, 2023, is 1430 in the Bengali calendar. By the 16th century, Gaur was the 5th largest city on earth. Chinese and Portuguese visitors describe the splendour of Gaur's houses, palaces, ponds and gardens with beautiful coloured tiles that you can still kind of see on the ruins today. Its large walls with fabulous gates, each guarded by 150 eunuchs. Its buildings were mounted with golden domes. It had hundreds of markets and paved streets where platoons of soldiers marched in columns with colourful flags. But the river that Gaur relied on changed course in the 17th century, which brought floods and malaria and destroyed river trade, and the once great city died and was abandoned. Its ruins stand today as a reminder of its glorious past. Bengali artists created an era of architectural brilliance. One example is the Adina Mosque, completed around 1375 CE. The Bengal Sultan Sikandar fought off an invasion from the Delhi Sultanate and as revenge decided to show off by building a true Bengali mosque, ignoring all North Indian styles and using ideas from Iran and the Palas and Senas. Just look at this thing. The arches, the courtyard, the intricate details, the little carving of the Hindu god Ganesha. In its heyday with its 350 domes, it must have been awe-inspiring. It remains the largest mosque ever built in South Asia. Bengali architecture, Hindu or Muslim from this time, is so distinct, but its most iconic trait is the curved roofs, based on the humble thatched bamboo roofs found everywhere in the villages of Bengal. Historical Bengali architecture in general is beautifully intricate and detailed, with all these little carvings in the walls that tell us stories from the past. The Bengali sultans oversaw a period of wealth and extravagance that sponsored the arts where Hindus and Muslims mixed freely. Hindus sang in Muslim styles and Muslims philosophized using Hindu ideas. In the 15th century, the Hindu saint Chaitanya started a massive Hindu religious movement based on love, equality and devotional singing of Hare Krishna. When the Sultan Hussein Shah found out about this, he gave the movement state protection and Hindus called him Lord Krishna in return. This was also an era of imperial intrigue and assassinations. Dynasties of all kinds of ethnic origins sat on the Bengali throne. At one point, the Ethiopian palace guards staged a coup and an Ethiopian dynasty ruled Bengal for 7 years. Eventually, the Persianized Turkic military juggernaut known as the Mughal Empire conquered Bengal in 1576, although it took decades and immense amounts of bloodshed for them to stamp out Bengali resistance. Mughal rule ended Bengal's independence and brought it into one of the largest empires in Indian history. The Mughals oversaw the Islamification of Bengal, and you might be saying, okay, wait a minute here, didn't Islam arrive with Bakhtiar like 400 years ago? Well, it's complicated. Bengal is pretty unique. Under Muslim rule, the Indian subcontinent remained mostly Hindu, but Bengal, specifically Eastern Bengal, became Muslim. You see, by the end of the Bengali Sultanate, Hinduism was having a golden age in Western Bengal, but Eastern Bengal stuck with Buddhism, Hinduism and other indigenous faiths. Islam was not the majority religion. Bengal was ruled by Muslims, but they didn't force the religion on the people. When the Mughals took over Bengal, they wanted to increase their tax revenue by farming more land. But most usable land was already settled in Western Bengal, and Eastern Bengal was isolated, difficult to traverse and heavily forested. Then, in the 16th century, the Ganges shifted its channel east, opening up Eastern Bengal. Mughal officials went crazy, issuing permits to men willing to go out and chop down the forests, swamps and marshes to create farmland and build towns. And the majority of these adventurous pioneers were charismatic, Muslim Sufi preachers called Pirs. These Pirs went out and found the towns with mosques as their cultural centres. Local people from the forest then came to these towns and settled down. As more land was settled, Islam became the religion associated with towns and economic growth. And the Pirs didn't enforce an exclusive religion. They mixed Islam with local beliefs. Today in the Sundarbans there's a local deity called Dakshin Roy, a combination of a Muslim saint and a Hindu god, who is still worshipped by Hindus and Muslims. Just like Bon Bibi, a Hindu and Muslim forest goddess. The tombs of Pirs, like the one of the Sufi saint Shah Jalal in Sylhet, are holy sites to all religious groups. Islam subtly blended into local beliefs over such a long period of time, we can't actually pinpoint when these people converted to Islam. As the Pirs settled more land, Buddhism, Hinduism and indigenous religions folded into one Islamic core. Generations later, most people born here were Muslim, and you can still see the mark of this movement today. West Bengal is mostly Hindu, East is mostly Muslim, and the less farmable hills are mostly Buddhist. The Mughal Empire in 1700 made up 25% of the Earth's economy, and Bengal was its richest province, making it the richest area of the richest country in the world. The Mughal Emperor Aurangzeb called Bengal the paradise of nations. Wealth poured into the capital, Dhaka, a city with 1 million inhabitants by 1700. Bengalis enjoyed some of the highest living standards in the world. One visitor noted, "At this market there are so many kinds of cotton goods. The eyes were attracted by the sight of such superabundance of many things in one city." Mughal Bengal was home to the largest textile manufacturing and shipbuilding industries in the world. Ottoman and British Navy sailed on Bengali ships, cannons and guns relied on Bengali gunpowder, armies fought with Bengali-made steel. The 1760s saw British ships abandon easily broken and flooded forecastles and poop decks, and adopt stronger, watertight flush decks, a design they got from Bengali rice ships. Bengal's rice fed Sri Lanka and the Maldives. The nobles of Europe, the Islamic world and East Asia wore the finest Bengali silks and muslins and enjoyed tea and candy sweetened with Bengali sugar. The muslins of this era were so well made, 20 meters of this woven air could fit inside a little tobacco box. And almost 2,000 years after those Romans complained, some prudes in Britain were upset at how revealing this cloth was, which provided us with this incredible pun. We know from Indian, Greek, Roman, Arab, Ethiopian and Chinese sources that Bengal was exporting immense amounts of textiles as early as the 3rd century BCE. Bengalis outproduced the world through their intricate transport and production system. Their rivers and canals acted as highways where tens of thousands of boats connected rural farmers with specialised production towns, which connected to urban markets and ports. Some towns focused on textiles, others on sugar processing, others on cash crops, others on shipbuilding. In Dhaka, state-owned factories called karkhanas employed thousands of workers under one roof to produce specialised goods, which were exported from Europe to East Africa to China. In the 18th century, Bengal's economy showed signs of a proto-industrial revolution. As the Bengali textile industry grew more efficient, advanced and profitable, huge amounts of capital were amassed in Bengal, which could have been invested in better equipment. Something would stop Bengal from making that industrial leap. As a trade hub, Bengal attracted the world's fortune seekers. The first Europeans to sail around Africa and into the Indian Ocean were the Portuguese in 1498. They soon arrived in Bengal, attracted by the promise of immense booty. Different booty. In 1528, the Bengali Sultan gave them permission to settle in Chattogram. They brought trade and Jesus, but also potatoes and tomatoes and chilies from America. But soon they joined up with Arakan pirates and became a pirating and slave trading menace in the Bay of Bengal. The French, Spanish, Danish, Dutch and British followed the Portuguese in the following decades. The British East India Company set up a trading post in a small fishing village called Calcutta in 1690. British called it Calcutta. By the early 1700s, Mughal control of Bengal was weak, and Bengal was essentially independent and ruled by princes called Nawabs. The Nawabs ruled from the dazzling city of Murshidabad as some of the world's richest rulers, patronising the arts. But by the mid-1700s, things were getting pretty rough. Portuguese and Arakan pirates were causing havoc, and the Marathas, a rapidly growing empire from central India, repeatedly invaded from 1741 onwards, killing about 400,000 people in Bengal. Eventually, the Nawabs ended up paying $1 billion modern dollars a year to keep the Marathas away. In the 1700s, the British East India Company demanded more and more concessions from a weakened Bengali state, and tensions began to boil over. When the British built illegal fortifications around Calcutta, the Nawab, Siraj-ud-Dowlah, besieged Calcutta in June of 1756 and kicked the British out. The British East India Company and Bengalis would meet for battle the following year at a site called Palashi. When Siraj met the British in battle, he had every advantage. His army was larger, it was better trained, he had more artillery, there were some French people there, but he had made a fatal error. He had annoyed Bengal's richest banking families and his army commander, Mir Jafar. In the weeks before this battle, the East India Company leader, Robert Clive, had made a secret deal with Mir Jafar and those families. The Battle of Palashi was a non-battle. Siraj's army under Mir Jafar stood by and watched as British artillery killed about 500 loyal Bengalis. Siraj fled, was promptly murdered, and Clive placed Mir Jafar on the Bengali throne. The company quickly booted Mir Jafar off the throne, and Bengal's riches made the East India Company one of the wealthiest corporations in human history and paid for the company's conquest of India. By 1858, when company rule ended and the British Crown took direct control, all of South Asia was governed from Calcutta, the second largest metropolis of the British Empire after London. British rule would bring a nightmare to the Paradise of Nations. Robert Clive and the East India Company's mismanagement resulted in a devastating famine in 1770, killing 1 in every 4 people. That was about 3 to 10 million people. They received no aid. Over the next 127 years, Bengal, the land of superabundance, would suffer 25 policy-induced famines. In 1793, Britain's Permanent Settlement Law changed Bengal's land system, turning a class called zamindars, who were tax-collecting nobles under Mughal rule, into landowners with a fixed yearly payment to the British. Failure to pay meant their land would be sold to another family. This burden simply fell on the peasants who lost their rights to the land. The new landowners, the zamindars, treated them like servants, increasing rents at will and evicting them when they couldn't pay. Some even banned the tenants from wearing shoes. Peasants could no longer pay their rent in crops. The British wanted cash, so peasants took high interest loans from zamindars and moneylenders, which left them in crushing generational debt. The zamindars were almost exclusively Hindus and the peasants Muslim. I wonder if this is going to have ramifications later. Bengal's exports fell from 5.6 million textiles a year in 1799 to 244,000 60 years later. That's 4% of their previous output. As Bengal was deindustrialized, millions of workers and artisans were sent back to the fields to grow cash crops like indigo, tea, silk, jute and opium, which the British then used to hook China on drugs in order to pay for Chinese tea, because the 1800s were crazy. Cheap Indian raw materials now fueled Britain's industrial revolution, and the East India Company forced British goods into India tax-free, keeping it as a captive market, destroying Indian industry. William Digby, a journalist at the time, noted, "England's industrial supremacy owes its origin to the vast horde of Bengal." By the 1800s, Dhaka's spinners and weavers had died in famine. The city was impoverished, ruined and abandoned, and the art of making its fine muslins was lost. Life expectancy in India plummeted under British rule, and the renowned economist Utsna Patnaik calculated that Britain drained $45 trillion from India between the years 1765 and 1938. As all this was happening across Bengal, things were going quite differently in Calcutta. now the capital and nerve centre of British rule in India. In a growing cosmopolitan Calcutta, English, Bengali, Sanskrit and Latin were spoken, Western and Indian ideas mixed freely, and as an economic hub, Calcutta prospered and attracted ambitious Bengalis. The University of Calcutta opened in 1857, and soon a generation of wealthy and educated, mostly Hindu Bengalis created an era of literature, art and science called the Bengal Renaissance. During this period, world-class poets and writers emerged from Bengal like Nazrul Islam, the rebel poet, the novelist Bankim Chandra Chatterjee, or the man that towers over Bengali literature, Rabindranath Tagore. He was a poet, writer, playwright, spiritualist, composer and singer who wrote over 4,000 poems and 2,500 songs. He took up painting at 70 and made over 3,000 drawings. At that point he was just showing off. In 1913 he became the first non-European to win the Nobel Prize. He got it for literature, and he was a global phenomenon in the early and mid 1900s, travelling the world and meeting with people like W. Yeats and Einstein. Not just a writer but also a revolutionary, he championed Indian independence and education of the masses, and when the British committed a massacre of civilians in Amritsar in 1919, Tagore gave up his knighthood in disgust. Tagore forever changed Bengali literature. His works, which evolved over his lifetime, focused on human dignity, freedom, universalism, nationalism, anti-nationalism, internationalism, anti-imperialism and religion. Seriously, Tagore's work varies from short, beautiful quotes to like full-on breakdowns of nationalist thought or the need to master mechanical production to tree planting. The guy had range. This novel, Gora, is an incredible insight into Indian politics, feminism and nationalism at the time, and even has like a weird twist involving the Irish. You should read it. It's pretty good. Today, every Bengali knows Tagore, and not just for his literature. He revolutionized Bengali music, and Tagore songs called Rabindra Sangeet are still a very popular genre. His poem Jana Gana Mana became the national anthem of India, and another, Amar Sonar Bangla, became the national anthem of Bangladesh. The Bengal Renaissance also created world-class scientists like Jagadish Chandra Bose. In November of 1895, at a public demonstration in Calcutta, Bose shot radio waves through a person over a distance of 23 meters through 2 walls, where they then triggered an apparatus which he had set up to ring a bell. This was 2 years before Guillermo Marconi, the famous inventor of radio, performed a similar demonstration of wireless telegraphy in England. The Bengal Renaissance brought up a new generation that demanded civil rights and fostered a sense of nationalist consciousness, leading to several revolts against British rule. Bengal would lead the way for the Indian independence movement. The British used a policy of divide and rule in India. Muslims and Hindus were pitted against each other to protect colonial interests, intensifying a division between them. So as the independence movement grew, the two nations theory emerged as well, proposing that Hindus and Muslims were two separate nations, and post-independence from Britain they should form two independent states. One a Hindu majority India, the other a Muslim majority Pakistan. The partition of India is often described on purely religious grounds, but it was much more complex. To put it very simply, British policy had placed Bengali Muslims in abject poverty under the domination of the British and upper-class Hindu zamindars and moneylenders. One East Bengali peasant in 1929 said, "My father, sir, was born in debt, grew in debt and died in debt. I have inherited my father's debt, and my son will inherit mine." The Muslim League, which pushed for the creation of Pakistan, also called for the end of the zamindari system. For these millions of Muslim peasants, Pakistan would be a farmer's utopia, a hope to finally live a life of dignity. Imagine how appealing the idea of your landlord and the people keeping you in crushing debt suddenly living in another country sounded. This was as much a class divide as a religious one. When Hindus pushed for independence, the British tried to break the movement by bringing more Muslims into government to scare them. With deteriorating Hindu and Muslim relations, violent communal riots unknown in the pre-British days became a common feature in Bengal. It was during these riots that the poet Nazrul Islam wrote songs demanding Hindus and Muslims unite. But they descended into fear. Hindu and Muslim communities were concerned that in an independent and united India, one group would dominate the other. They began to see each other as two monoliths trapped in a bitter rivalry, as if they had not shared a common homeland, language, heritage and culture in an undivided Bengal for nearly 1,000 years. Even with this conflict, both the Muslim League and Indian National Congress were building huge momentum in the goal to push the British out of India and secure independence. Britain declared war on Germany in 1939 and dragged their Indian colony into the Second World War. Japan attacked Pearl Harbor on the 7th of December 1941. By the summer of 1942, they conquered British Malaya, Hong Kong, Singapore and blitzed into Burma as the British Army retreated. Calcutta was now the stronghold of the British Empire in the east. But defending Calcutta didn't mean reinforcing it militarily. The Japanese bombed it without resistance. The defense would be a scorched earth policy called denial. To deny the Japanese any resources should they invade, the British ordered the destruction of boats across Bengal. All the rice from the countryside was seized and stockpiled in Calcutta to feed its citizens. The rice that could not be seized was destroyed. The price of rice skyrocketed well beyond what the poor could afford. By August 1942, the Chief Minister of Bengal, Fazl Huq, was sounding the alarm, stating, "We are faced with a rice famine in Bengal." He was ignored. In the swelter and heat of May 1943, the first reports of deaths began to trickle into Calcutta. The trickle soon became a tsunami. The countryside transformed into a deathscape. Famine was killing 1 in every 7th person. Rural peasants, weakened by months of hunger, poured towards Calcutta, but they will receive no food there, and if caught by the authorities will be sent to camps to die. The British government refused to declare a state of famine, even though its famine code would have mandated vital food aid, and lots of the stockpiled rice rotted in warehouses rather than being distributed to the poor. Winston Churchill refused food imports to Bengal. It was his opinion that the famine was their own fault, and the starvation of underfed Bengalis is less serious than that of sturdy Greeks. When Parliament reminded him of the famine in Bengal, he asked, "Why hasn't Gandhi died yet?" When the famine officially ended in December 1943, over 3 million lives had been annihilated. That number is probably an underestimate. During World War II, the Bengalis suffered more casualties than the US, the UK and France combined. They are rarely counted among the war dead. The Bengal famine in 1943 would be the final judgment of British rule in India. In the wake of the war and famine, rebellions and violent riots broke out between Hindus and Muslims in Bengal just as the independent movement sealed a victory. In 1947, under Viceroy Lord Mountbatten, Britain was compelled to relinquish India. In a matter of weeks, the subcontinent was vivisected. The British drew lines across India, ignoring history and community, and created a Hindu-majority India and Muslim-majority Pakistan. At 11:57 on the 14th of August 1947, Pakistan became an independent nation. India followed on the 15th. 2 centuries of colonial rule had finally come to an end, and the people of this subcontinent were free to govern themselves. But 20 million people found themselves on the wrong side of these lines and had to rapidly move, abandoning their previous lives. Hundreds of thousands died in the violent chaos. Bengal will be sliced in half. The Hindu West went to India, the Muslim East to Pakistan, ending thousands of years of shared history. Pakistan was born a bifurcated nation. West Pakistan and Bengal, now East Pakistan, were separated by 1,400 kilometers. The administration, bureaucracy and army were entirely staffed by West Pakistanis. All economic aid and development went to West Pakistan, even though East Pakistan had more people and earned most of the revenue. Bengal was still a colony. Even though Bengali was spoken by 58.6% of the population, Urdu, a language from West Pakistan, was the sole official language. Bengalis demanded recognition of their language, so in February of 1948, East Pakistan went on strike. The Governor General of Pakistan, Muhammad Ali Jinnah, visited on March 19th to cool things down. He declared to the crowd,
"State language of Pakistan is going to be Urdu and no other language. tries to mislead you is really the enemy of Pakistan.
Which was probably the worst thing he could have said. On February 21st, 1952, thousands of students and members of the Bengali language movement protested at Dhaka University. They were surrounded by the police, who then opened fire into the crowd, injuring hundreds and killing 5 people. Bangladesh had its first martyrs. The 21st of February is now International Mother Language Day and is a deeply important holiday in Bangladesh. The Awami League political party was formed to push for Bengali rights. East Pakistan was plagued by riots and strikes. People proudly sung the Bengali songs of Tagore, and a new identity was forming. A charismatic Bengali politician by the name of Sheikh Mujibur Rahman rose up to become the president of the Awami League in January of 1966. When he advocated for a self-ruling East Pakistan, Mujibur and thousands of Awami League members were jailed, and to rub salt in the wound, West Pakistan banned all Tagore songs. His arrest made Mujibur a political icon for Bengalis. To end the chaos, the president of Pakistan, Yahya Khan, released Mujibur and called for elections for December of 1970. Then, the deadliest cyclone in human history smashed into East Pakistan in November, killing 300,000 people in East Pakistan, with no response from West Pakistan. Fed up, united and led by Mujibur, the Bengali response would be world-changing. On the 7th of December, the election results came in. The Awami League, the Bengalis, had won a majority in Pakistan's National Assembly.
167 seats out of the 169 allotted to East Bengal in a house of 313 members.
Mujibur would now be Prime Minister. Instead, Yahya brought in martial law. On March 7, Mujibur made a fiery speech to a crowd of 2 million in Dhaka. On the 25th of March 1971, Yahya told his soldiers to initiate Operation Searchlight, kill the idea of Bangladesh. Mujibur was arrested and smuggled to West Pakistan. Soldiers, armed cars and tanks rolled out onto the streets of Dhaka, hunting down Awami League members and burning the city. Students and lecturers barricaded themselves in Dhaka University and resisted the army's assault. The university dorms were shelled. The future minds of Bangladesh were massacred. In the following weeks, thousands of people were picked up by the army and dispatched to Bangladesh. West Pakistan unleashed total war on the Bengalis. Massacres took place across Bangladesh. An eyewitness account recalled, "We could not stay in any particular village for any length of time. The Pakistani army was burning the villages one after another. It was hell." By May of 1971, 1.5 million Bengalis had fled to India. About 60,000 of them crossed the border daily.
On the 25th of March 1971 began one of the largest mass movements in our time. An exodus the like of which the world had not known.
The suffering and the torture of the people's mind and body has been something unforgettable.
The Awami League regrouped in Calcutta and formed a government in exile. The Mukti Bahini, the freedom fighters, formed and recruited thousands of men and women. By November, tens of thousands of Mukti were assaulting Pakistani positions in an intense guerrilla campaign. In April of 1971, Archer Blood, an American consul in Dhaka, sent an angry cable message to President Nixon and his advisor Henry Kissinger, denouncing their support for Pakistan's actions, which he called genocide. They were furious at Blood for leaking this information. The Pakistani military needed American materials to continue running. Pressure from them could have ended this bloodbath. But this was the Cold War. The Pakistani army was committing genocide in Bangladesh, armed to the teeth with American weapons. Pakistan was a key ally between the US and China. The Americans were using Pakistan as a secret channel to communicate with Mao Zedong's China. Nixon and Kissinger wanted the opening of China to be their crowning political achievement, so they needed Pakistan happy. On the 2nd of May 1971, with reports of genocide coming in, Nixon and Kissinger told their government, "Don't squeeze Yahya at this time." The "don't" was underlined 3 times. India had been supporting Bangladesh for months. Calcutta and West Bengal were a base of operations for the Mukti, and the Indian army was secretly assisting them. India was facing a massive humanitarian crisis as millions of Bangladeshi refugees fled into India. The United States warned Indira Gandhi, India's leader, that if India intervened to stop Pakistan, there would be severe consequences. Kissinger informed China that if they militarily intervened to help their ally Pakistan, the US would defend them if another nation, like for example the Soviet Union, responded. The Soviet Union joined India in supporting Bangladesh, and in August of 1971 signed a treaty with India agreeing to defend them if anyone attacked. Things got extremely tense. A war of liberation by Bengalis that simply wanted to speak their own language now descended into an almost comedic scenario. At one point, Richard Nixon, the President of the United States, discussed lobbing nuclear weapons in to defend Mao Zedong's China if the Soviets attacked it, if China intervened against India to protect Pakistan, because the 1900s were crazy. The Mukti were putting up an incredible fight against a better armed military, but with every passing day the genocide continued and millions of refugees poured into a stressed India.
India had to shelter millions of people who came across the border. Providing just the basic amenities to such a large number of people was a task which even the most affluent nation in the world could not have taken in its stride.
Announced the coming of a great Holocaust, sobbing, all is lost, all is lost, all is lost.
Now confident that they had Soviet support, by November, India was massing troops on the Pakistani border. On December 3rd, Pakistani planes bombed strategic sites across northern India. India joined the war. The US sent a nuclear aircraft carrier and a powerful task force to the Bay of Bengal as a final warning to India. The clock was ticking. The American task force was approaching. If they didn't have total control of Bangladesh and a Pakistani surrender before the Americans showed up, the resulting stalemate would be a humanitarian disaster. The Indian and Bangladeshi armies blitzed towards Dhaka to secure victory. The fighting was brutal, but in just 2 weeks, on the 16th of December, Indian and Bangladeshi troops took Dhaka and forced a Pakistani surrender.
At 4 p.m. on the 16th of December 1971, Lieutenant General A.A.K. Niazi signed the instrument of surrender and placed himself and his troops under the command of Lieutenant General J.S. Arora.
The true number is still not known, but this war killed roughly 1.7 million people in 9 months. Hundreds of thousands of women were sexually assaulted. 10 million people were now refugees in India, and 20 million people were displaced internally. But Bangladesh was born. Look, this is where I have to stop the history part. I could keep talking about this for hours, but the video can only be so long. So next up we have religion. Bengal's religious history is etched into its landscape as mosques, temples, stupas and churches dot Bengal. Today about 67% of Bengalis are Muslim and 32% are Hindu. Buddhists, especially in Bangladesh, and Christians make up the remaining 1%. Muslims make up 91% of Bangladesh, while Hindus make up 70% of West Bengal. Hindus may be a minority in Bangladesh, but there's still 13 million of them, which is more people than there are in Belgium. Over in West Bengal, there are 24 million Bengali Muslims, which means West Bengal has a larger Muslim population than overwhelmingly Muslim Syria or Mali. You can see the religious origins of Bengali people through their surnames. Kazi, Sahid and Mustafi are Muslim surnames. Bose, Roy and Guptu are Hindu. Barua is Buddhist, and Gomez, De Silva and De Souza are Christian. A reminder that the Portuguese were the first to bring Christianity here. The most important festival to Bengali Hindus is the Durga Puja, which celebrates Durga, a powerful mother goddess who defends the weak and slays the wicked. The puja happens during the Bengali month of Ashvin, kind of around September-October in the Gregorian calendar. For 10 days in Bengal, especially West Bengal, all attention is directed towards showing love and gratitude to Durga. Streets are packed with people, markets and fairs are open all night. There are scripture readings, performances, dances, feasting, gift exchanges, parades, and most importantly, temporary statues/stages are built and decorated, and these are called pandals. During the festival, Bengalis go pandal hopping to see the diverse pandals made from all sorts of materials and with special themes such as environmentalism, motherhood, supporting sex workers, remembering the partition or migrants, and all sorts of other stuff. On the 10th day of the puja, the pandals are brought to the local river, immersed in the water, and Durga returns to the cosmos, her visit to Earth having ended. Durga is a Hindu goddess, but many Muslims will join in the celebrations with their Hindu neighbours, and it's become a festival that celebrates Bengali culture in general. The colour and vibrancy of this festival is unmatched as people party in the streets. During the Danuchi Nak dance, the colourfully dressed dancer balances a chalice filled with coconut husks, burning charcoal and incense. They move to the beat of the nearby dak drums, and some even dance with a chalice in their mouths. Another festival, Pohila Boishak, is Bengali New Year. It's celebrated on the 14th and 15th of April. This is a secular Bengali festival with a strong sense of camaraderie during the parades, feasts and family visits that occur. Everyone gets together to make plans for the new year, people wear red and white, and the streets will be filled with greetings of Subhu Nobar Borshu, or Happy New Year. I didn't say it right. Okay. One last one. Dhaka has this really cool festival called Shakrain, which is kind of like a kite festival, but at night they have these really cool, amazing light shows, and there's fire eaters on the rooftops. Look at all the lights. Is that not one of the coolest things you've ever seen? Food. The Bengalis are food obsessed. Even when eating a good meal, Bengalis will be talking about a previous good meal they've eaten, and they have every right to be obsessed. Their food is incredible and diverse, with influence from India, China, Southeast Asia, Central Asia and Europe. The Portuguese brought yeast-baked bread, potatoes, chili peppers and tomatoes. The French introduced the multi-course meal. The British brought... The Mughal influence led to a huge increase in the use of milk, cream, sugar, mutton, chicken and ghee or clarified butter, and spices like saffron and cardamom. They also introduced Arabic and Persian dishes like biryani, korma, boona, chap, rezala and kati roll, which is kind of like a kebab. These dishes are more common in Bangladesh, where meat is more common in general since Muslims can eat beef, whereas Hindu Bengalis do not. Many Hindus also don't eat garlic or onion. They use asafoetida instead, whereas Bengali Muslims are happy to use garlic and onion. Sitting on so many rivers, Bengali food is dominated by two things: rice and fish. Eilish fish is by far the most popular, and this oily fish rich in omega-3 can be found in curries or fried in mustard oil. Bengali food uses distinct flavours like mustard oil, turmeric, cinnamon, cardamom, naga chili, nutmeg and mace. Bengali food also uses a lot of coconut and poppy seeds, a cultural reminder of Bengal's opium history. The traditional spice blend of Bengali cuisine is panch phoron, made of cumin, nigella, fenugreek, fennel and mustard seeds. Many Bengali dishes are also eaten with some lemon on the side, which is something their neighbours don't really do. Iconic Bengali dishes are sorsha ilse, which is Eilish fish, fried in mustard oil with chilies, cumin, turmeric and lime. Suktu, which is a bitter vegetable dish which is supposed to help with digestion. Luchi and cholar dal, which is a fried flatbread with sweet savoury dal made of split chickpeas, coconut, raisins and spices. There's murigantu, which is a fish head curry. There's also biryani, and this meat and rice dish is eaten across South Asia, but Bengali biryani is unique because they add potatoes, which is honestly a genius move. Then there's morang palau, a delicious slow-cooked chicken with pilaf rice, and kashir mangso, a silky potato and mutton curry. Bengalis also have a huge range of desserts and sweets. Rasgulla is their iconic sweet. This is a cottage cheese dough filled with delicious syrup. There's also misti doi, a fermented sweet yogurt, borhani and sandesh and shahi jalebi. There are so many regional sweets, teas, drinks, desserts that it's impossible to include them all. Diaspora. Today, Bengalis are one of the world's largest diasporas. numbering about 13 million people. Outside of Bengal, they're primarily located in India and Pakistan, the Gulf states, Malaysia, the UK, the USA, South Africa and Italy. Bengali merchants have settled in places like Indonesia and Sri Lanka for thousands of years, but in the 19th century, Bengali spread further as they were exported across the British Empire as indentured labourers. In 1814, 3 Bengali sailors jumped off an East India Company ship near New Zealand, where they joined up with the local Maori people and taught them strategies for fighting Europeans. 30 years later, in 1841, one of them was found with face tattoos living on Stewart Island with his Maori family. Specifically, the Bangladeshi diaspora is a fundamental cog in the economy of Asia. 2.5 million of them live in Saudi Arabia and millions more in other Gulf states where they build and maintain vital services, often under terrible conditions. They send home about $22 billion a year, and this is Bangladesh's second largest GDP contributor after the garment industry. The country where Bengalis have had by far the largest impact outside of South Asia is in the United Kingdom. Bengalis have been travelling to the UK for centuries. In the 1800s, Dean Mohammed married a woman from Cork, moved to London and introduced shampoo to Europeans. After the Second World War, Britain was in desperate need of labour. In the 50s and 60s, Bengalis helped rebuild Britain by working in vital industries such as construction, auto manufacturing, steelworking and other industrial sectors. Many of these labourers then settled down in the Brick Lane area of East London, today known as Banglatown. When refugees fleeing the 1971 war ended up in Britain, this community cared for them and absorbed them into the growing Bengali restaurant business. Bengali immigrants started up Indian curry shops and tweaked South Asian food to suit the British palate. Doing so, they pioneered British curry and chicken tikka masala, one of Britain's favourite dishes. About 90% of the UK's Indian restaurants were started by Bangladeshis. However, just as in Bangladesh, this community would have its own martyrs.
Police are linking last night's bombing to the one last week in Brixton, which injured 39 people. The far-right group Combat 18 has claimed responsibility for placing the bomb. Police are clear it was a racist attack aimed at the ethnic community in Brick Lane.
They suffered horrific racist attacks, and on the 4th of May 1978, while walking home, Altab Ali was murdered. In protest, they marched his coffin to 10 Downing Street. This community persevered though. Bengalis have gone from some of Britain's worst performing students to some of its best, and memorials to Ali stand beautifully in Brick Lane. Baishakhi Mela, the British version of Bengali New Year, is now the second largest street festival in Britain. Culture. Throughout history, the Bengalis have crafted beautiful works from cotton, silk, ivory, terracotta, bamboo, rice flour and muslin, which have seen a revival in post-colonial Bengal. Carved masks are used in the chow dance, where dancers act out scenes from mythology. But the Bengalis are most famous for their love of the arts of literature and music. Almost every Bengali can sing a Tagore song, and the songs of nomadic musicians called balds are incredibly popular. These musicians attempt to connect with the divine by having no material possession and bringing people joy through song. The most famous of the balds is Lalon Shah, an incredible philosopher-musician whose work spoke out against class, religion and gender discrimination and claimed that God could not be found in any temple or mosque but inside humanity. Bengalis are famous bookworms. The largest second-hand book market in the world is in Calcutta, and every year Bangladesh holds a book fair that attracts over 500,000 people and earns €4 million. Alongside writers like Tagore, there's the national poet of Bangladesh, Nazrul Islam, the rebel poet who fought against British rule and interreligious violence. There's also the Bengali feminist writer Rokeya Hussain, and one of her books from 1905, Sultana's Dream, is a short, satirical sci-fi novel about a futuristic world in which the gender relations are reversed. Women have built an advanced society and men are secluded away with no roles in public life. It's a very short book, but it's a fascinating look at a critique of South Asian gender relations over 100 years ago. Also, the women seize control by firing a giant sun-powered laser at the men, so go read it. Hussain became one of Bengal's most influential authors. She started a school to educate women and pushed for education of girls in a society that was deeply against it. Now, Bangladesh has dedicated the 9th of December as a holiday in her honour. Bengali cinema was one of the earliest to evolve in South Asia. Tollywood, which gets its name from Tullygung in Calcutta, was christened in 1932. The tradition of adding Ollywood to different film industries started here with Tollywood. Bollywood will follow in its footsteps. While Indian film is known for its musicals and sudden outbursts of song, Tollywood produced realistic, grungy films that commented on socio-political issues. The star of Tollywood is definitely Satyajit Ray and his Apu trilogy. This coming-of-age story is an important cinematic masterpiece. Its crew invented bounce lighting, and so far it's won over 30 awards. It's up with Lord of the Rings as one of the highest rated trilogies of all time. The famous director Akira Kurosawa said, "Not to have seen the cinema of Ray means existing in the world without seeing the sun or the moon." Like most of South Asia, today cricket is Bengal's primary sport, but Bengalis also go crazy for football. Bengalis are obsessed with the Argentinian and Brazilian football teams. Seriously, they go to war for these teams. During the last World Cup, one of my favourite moments was watching the Bengalis rally behind Argentina. When Maradona visited Calcutta in 2008, hundreds of thousands of Bengalis went to the streets to see him. Now there's a 4-metre tall statue of him in Calcutta. This love of football in Bengal goes back to an incredible moment in history. The year is 1911. 2 minutes remain in a 1-1 match between the East Yorkshire Regiment and Mohun Bagan, the first all-Indian team to reach the Indian Football Association finals. Tensions are high. This was the height of the British Empire. The Indian independence movement was kicking off, and now 11 barefoot Bengalis stood against a crack British regiment team. Abhilash Ghosh smashes the ball into the net. The game ends 2-1. Mohun Bagan becomes the first all-Indian team to win the championship. Bengal erupts in celebration, and this team goes down in history as the Immortal 11. This becomes a major event in Indian independence when the Bengalis proved they could beat Britain at its own sport. Their victory in 1911 proved the British could be beaten. Mohun Bagan's second championship victory came in 1947 when the British finally were. I absolutely love learning about other cultures, ways of life, and the history of humanity. And if you liked this video, I assume you do too, which is why you'd love the series Great Cities over on Nebula. You'll see how great cities like Cairo, Paris, Venice, or Shanghai came to be. You can also watch all my videos there, ad-free and earlier than on YouTube. Creators like Extra History, Johnny Harris, Jetlag, and many others released their videos on Nebula a week before YouTube. Nebula is a creator-owned and operated streaming service, home to high-quality content made without the pressure to serve the YouTube algorithm, so there you'll find new and unique series. These include Nebula originals like Modern Conflicts by Real Life Lore. This is an entire series about war and diplomacy that shape our world that you couldn't broadcast on YouTube, or Real Engineering's Battle of Britain series, or Neo's Underexposure series, or even more niche stuff like an entire video about the theme song from Charmed, or a video on the importance of RuneScape in Venezuela's economy. These are all produced with quality rather than clicks in mind. With our link, you'll get free access to Nebula classes where you can learn to be a creator, make music, or even sue like a lawyer from experts in those fields. If you're in any way interested in becoming a creator, this is an incredible way to look behind the scenes and see how it's done. Nebula is about $50 a year. But with our link, you can support this channel directly and get both Nebula and Nebula classes for 40% off the annual plan, $30 a year or about $2.50 a month for an insane amount of high quality content from some of your favourite creators. Editing Cogito here. This video is about to go live, but I've just heard from the Nebula team that for the month of September, Nebula is offering a lifetime membership deal. The deal is you pay $300 once and get access to Nebula for as long as you, Nebula, and the current dimension we live in exists. This isn't the most economical deal. The annual subscription for $30 a year is, so if you want the best deal, go with that one. This deal is for those of you that want to support creators and what we're trying to achieve with Nebula. We want to make a platform that is creator owned, with original, smart, highly produced content. We want to build a platform that isn't about generating clicks no matter what. Recently, Nebula has been laser focusing on Nebula Originals, highly produced original content that is only on Nebula, that would normally be beyond the budget for normal creators to make. Lifetime memberships are a great way to fund those projects right now. Nebula already has a healthy amount of monthly and yearly subscribers, which means as a platform we don't have to take on any outside funding or answer to predatory investors. Everything the platform makes goes into paying the creators, producing content, and improving the platform. Lifetime memberships are a way for us to get a lump sum without sacrificing Nebula's independence. The originals that have been created so far are already impressive, so I'm really looking forward to seeing what we can make with a bigger budget. And even though I haven't produced an original yet, the possibilities they present are incredible, and I have a ton of topics I know could only work as Nebula originals. Lifetime memberships also help us improve the quality of the Nebula app, which has been getting a lot of work lately. We've just added support for LG TVs and Roku this year. When you sign up for a lifetime membership, your payment gets split 3 ways. The first part goes directly to the creator that referred you, so me. Another amount goes towards fixing bugs and adding features to Nebula, and the last amount goes to funding Nebula originals. The money that makes Nebula and its projects possible comes directly from the people who sign up to Nebula. Our customers are the investors, and so the platform answers to them and their desires rather than a boardroom. I care about Nebula, I care about its success, I love the team behind it, and I think we're doing incredible work. The safety it provides me and this channel is invaluable. If you believe in it too and want to be a part of its success for years to come, and a Nebula lifetime membership sounds interesting to you, check out the link in the pinned comment. This is for people that truly care about what we're building and want to support it beyond the regular subscription. For most of you, the annual $30 a year subscription is still the best deal, and you'll get access to everything Nebula has to offer through that deal. And this channel will still get a part of that subscription too. But no matter what your choice is, I appreciate you for watching and thank you. So click the link below to join Nebula today, and you can help support this channel while also enjoying amazing educational content. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video. It's the longest video I've ever made, and it took me a really long time to put together, and unfortunately I still had to cut things and simplify things. It's impossible to cover an entire people in just one video. But I hope you enjoyed this brief introduction to the Bengalis. Leave a comment below on which people you'd like me to cover next, and if you are Bengali, please leave a comment on what you thought I left out or what you thought of the video, or if you just want to make fun of the way I say Bengali words. A link to my Patreon is also down below if you'd like to help support this channel. All patrons get early access to these videos and get to join the Discord with me and all the other patrons. Sources I use are also in the description. Thank you so much for watching, and Bidaya.